What is important and what is essential is that citizens must absolutely start to involve themselves in government. We have to start participating. We have to become effectively citizens. Citizenship is not just voting. Citizenship is participating and overseeing government, and we have to start doing that. I'm going to read a brief section. This was from President Trump's Advisory 1776 Commission. And this encapsulates almost exactly what my work is about, which is educating citizens, encouraging them to participate in government. So here's what, this was from the final report of the President's 1776 Advisory Council, the task of national renewal. In the course of human events, there have always been those who deny or reject human freedom, but Americans will never falter in defending the fundamental truths of human liberty proclaimed on July 4, 1776. We must always hold these truths. All the good things we see around us, from the physical infrastructure to our high standards of living to our exceptional freedoms, are the direct results of America's unity, stability, and justice, all of which in turn rest on the bedrock of our founding principles. Yet today, our country is in danger of throwing this inheritance away. The choice before us is now clear. Will we choose the truths of declaration, or will we fall prey to the false theories that have led too many nations to tyranny? It is our mission, all of us, to restore our national unity by rekindling a brave and honest love for our country, and by raising new generations of citizens who not only know the self-evident truths of our founding, but act worthy of them. This great project of our national renewal depends upon true education, not merely training in particular skills, but the formation of citizens. To remain a free people, we must have the knowledge, strength, and virtue of the free people. From families and schools to popular culture and public policy, we must teach our founding principles and the character necessary to live out those principles. This includes restoring patriotic education that teaches the truth about America. That doesn't mean ignoring the faults of our past, but rather viewing our history clearly and wholly with reverence and love. We must also prioritize personal responsibility and fulfilling the duties we have toward one another as citizens. Above all, we must stand up to petty tyrants in every sphere who demand that we speak only of America's sins while denying greatness. At home, in school, at the workplace, and in the world, it is the people, and only the people, who have the power to stand up for America and defend our way of life. So that is exactly what my work is about, is teaching you again how to become citizens, not just exercising the right to vote and elect our representatives, but participating in government, overseeing government. That is our duty as American citizens that we have failed in. And if we hope to preserve this republic, the principles that it was founded upon, we have to start performing our duty and overseeing government. It is going to come only through us, we the people. And that's why I'm running for governor, is to restore the voice and power inherent in the people, to restore our voice in government. So, Mr. Creener, I was hoping he was going to join me live here on Facebook, but he reached out to me and said, how do there's this terrible bill, this terrible legislation. How do I reached out to the senator, how am I going to put my voice in, and how am I going to stop this? And this class is about, or what I'm going to be sharing tonight, teaching you, is showing you how to engage yourself with government, to actually go down and speak against legislation. So I'm going to give you a tour of the Tennessee General Assembly website to look up the bills and everything that's on there. And to talk about, this whole legislative process. So I'm going to share my screen here with you guys. It'll be easier if you see what I'm talking about. So this is the current state of how legislation occurs. Each member of the House can propose 15 bills. There's 98 members in the House. So that's a total of about 1,470 bills. The chairs of the committee, they can propose an additional 5 bills. So that works out to with 15 committees, another 75 bills at a minimum. I meant to call the clerk of the House and check. I'm not sure, but I also think that the chairs of the subcommittees, and there's 20 subcommittees, can also propose bills. So 20 times 5 is another 100. So we'd be looking at about 1,600 bills that can be proposed. And I assure you that they pretty much max this out every session. Can you believe that our legislative houses propose somewhere between 1,500 and 1,600 bills every session? And looking at the last session, they passed about 900. So that's about 2/3 of this proposed legislation gets passed. So let's, I'm a certified public accountant, so let's break down the numbers. The legislative session typically runs through January through April. So that's 16 weeks, and they don't work Fridays. They don't conduct legislative business generally on Fridays. So that works out 16 times 4. We're looking at 64 days of the legislative process in Tennessee. From there, they work typically 8 hours a day. So that's 512 minutes. So if we break that down, that's a total of 30,720 minutes. If we take 30,720 minutes and divide that by, approximately 1,600 bills, we're looking at 20 minutes of consideration for each bill that goes through. How possibly can our legislative process give 20 minutes consideration to enact a law? That's the first breakdown, in my opinion. These guys are passing legislation like a short order cook grilling pancakes and passing them out at Waffle House. That's how fast this legislation goes through our process. That's absolutely disturbing to me. So I want to go through and walk through how do you start looking at this legislation, and how can we possibly start to speak out against it. So I'm going to go to Tennessee General Assembly and give you a quick tour of how this works. So this is the Tennessee General Assembly website. You can go through and look out. If you go to find my legislator, you can type in your address and it will tell you exactly who your representative is. It will tell you exactly who your senator is. You can click on legislators, and then you can go to House members and Senate members. And I encourage you guys, if we go look like William Lambert out of Portland County. Let's see, where's he at? Oh, I'm looking in the Senate. to go to legislators, House members, and we go down to Lamberth, for example. Here's William Lamberth. Well, if you want to see what William Lamberth is doing, over here, let me blow this up a little bit, make sure you guys can see this. So over here is bills. These are all January 13th. These are all the bills. Look at all the bills that William Lamberth put in. So as you look at these bills, you can click on and click on a particular bill. I'm just gonna grab one. I don't know. I haven't looked at this bill. I don't know what it's about. So here's the bill. This is called the caption of the bill. And it says, as introduced, removes the adoption contract detail registry and revises other provisions governing adoption, amends Tennessee Code annotated Title 36, Chapter 1, and sections 68.313. So that's the caption. And this is pretty much when they go through these hearings and listen to bills, that's what the members typically present is the caption. But that's not the bill. And you're like, well, what's this bill about? And when you look at this thing, that's all you see is like that's what the bill is about. What they don't tell you is you can click on the bill title here and it brings up a PDF. Now you can look and see, exactly what that bill is about. And these are pretty long. And for most citizens, we've been kept so ignorant of this process. It's hard for some lay people, to go through this and see, what is this language is about. But to me, that the way this website is laid out, to not say, click here to see the bill or something to see the actual bill, in my mind, that's deceptive. But what I have found in looking at legislation is these captions tell nothing. And they suggest that when they read these captions, generally you're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But when you get into the actual bill, you're like, oh my goodness, what are they trying to do? When you start looking at the when you start looking at the details of the bill. And this is what our founders in our Declaration of Independence, that they called this a declared act of tyranny. So this is the United States Archives website, and this is our transcription of our Declaration of Independence. And so when they said, here's why we're declaring independence, they said, to prove this, let these facts be submitted to a candid world. And one of the grievances that they stated in here is pretended legislation. So he, the king, has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. This is a declared act of tyranny, is pretended legislation. That is legislation that it appears to be for the public welfare and the benefit of all, but it's pretended, it's fake. It's not real what they say in a lot of these captions. So that's a danger. Now, this particular bill that this gentleman reached out to me about and said, I want to speak out against this bill. It's SB 0135 by Hale, and that's in the Senate. So this SB means Senate bill. HB means House bill. And so this is proposed by Senator Hale and by Representative Zachary. And it says, as introduced, provides a mechanism by which public records custodian may enter into a mediation with the records requester for the purpose of stopping requests that constitute harassment, and if mediation fails, authorizes a records custodian to seek an injunction. That's the caption. What this bill is about is shutting down FOIA requests and denying public access to records. So here's what happens and why this bill is being introduced. A citizen goes out. I'm going to take this off of screen share just for a second. So a citizen makes a FOIA request and says, I want all court records related to whatever, and they ignore it. They don't respond to that first phone call or email request. So you send a second one, and you're like, hey, just following up on my request, have you had time to look at it? I'd like to get these records, and you're ignored again. So you start getting a little annoyed and starting to get a little angry that they're not doing their job. And you're like, hey, stupid, I've asked 2 times before and you're ignoring me. Will you please do your job and provide this information that I'm requesting on the Freedom of Information Act? Oh, calling me stupid. Now you're harassing me. And so I'm going to go get an injunction against you from a court, and I'm going to restrain you from harassing me. That's what this bill is about, is for corrupt government to prevent public access to records. And that's what Senator Hale is proposing with this legislation. Now they're going to come out and say, oh, we got this guy from Gallatin who keeps making these records requests, and he's just harassing us with these records requests that are out there. Well, the Tennessee Constitution, Article 16 or Article 11, Section 8 of the Tennessee Constitution. I'm going to look for this. I didn't have this up. I apologize. But Section 8 says that the legislature shall have no power to pass any law for the benefit of individuals inconsistent with the general laws of the land, nor pass any law granting to any individual or individuals rights, privileges, or immunities or exemptions other than such as may be by the same law extended to any member of the community. So the Tennessee Constitution says that legislators cannot pass special interest legislation. Let me tell you, that knocks out about 80–90% of all the legislation, because it's all special interest legislation. It's expressly prohibited. But let's go back and let me share my screen again. And I'm going to show you how this bill by Senator Hale is pretended legislation. So if we go, I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on the actual bill, because that caption is garbage. It does not tell what the bill is about. So let's go back and look at the actual bill. So they're saying, if a person makes a request to copy a record that constitutes harassment, before petitioning for an injunction, which is they want a restraining order, they want to shut people down from making records requests, then they have to request mediation. Now, there's a couple of problems here. They're saying that they have to provide the person with notice by certified mail to mediate the dispute. Now, get this. Here's the tricky attorney language, and this is important. Every bill that goes in front of the General Assembly is written by an attorney. Every single bill. They are not written by our representatives. They are written by attorneys. And let me tell you, these tricky attorneys, they draft the language that makes it convoluted, that the average layperson cannot understand it, and they draft the language so that judges can decide however they want. These guys are nothing but confidence men. They're con artists, and they use trickery to get legislation through that oppresses rights of the people, that extorts us under color of law, that creates new statutes to oppress our rights. That's what most of it is. All right, so they're saying here they say, provide the person with notice by certified mail to mediate this dispute with cost of mediation incurred by the employing entity. Oh, well, that doesn't sound bad, right? Cost of mediation incurred by the employing entity of the records custodian. So I don't know, you go to DMV and say, I want some records about how many people are registered to drive or licensed to drive. And they say, well, we don't want to provide that. And they'll say, well, so we're going to mediate this and we're going to pay for it. Wrong. Here's the next trick. I'm going to explain that one about why that agency is not going to pay it. If the person receiving notice doesn't respond within 10 days or rejects the opportunity, the records custodian may petition the court to enjoin and restrain them. So what this means, if you don't respond in 10 days or you don't agree, then they're going to go straight to a corrupt judge and they're going to say, I want you to restrain this person from making a FOIA request. I want you to restrain them from calling me, to coming to my place of work. Government employees are using the power of the court to protect information that they don't want put out in public through FOIA requests. Okay, so they go on, if they agree to mediation, so they're going to consult with the parties, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I believe, sure. An agreement entered into pursuant to mediation may include, oh yeah, without limitation. An agreement pursued may include without limitation. Without limitation means the sky is the limit. An agreement as to the conduct of either party, which means you're going to shut up and quit bothering me requesting this information. Oh, and monetary compensation for the costs of producing the records requested. Wait a minute. I don't need to pay you. The citizens of this state pay you to do your job. We pay for the paper that it is printed on, and that it amounts to double taxation and it's extortion under color of law. Oh, and fees for the cost of mediation. What that means is you're going to pay for the attorney who is the mediator out there, and any other equitable remedy to which the parties may agree. And if the mediator finds that the requester harassed the records custodian at the conclusion, let's see, wait a minute. The requester shall not request records custodian until the matter has been resolved by a court of competent jurisdiction. So if you've been following my work, you know that our judiciary is corrupt top to bottom, and they protect the corruption of all state officials. So so this process, you make a records request, they ignore you, you get angry, and you're like, do your job. And then they say, oh, we need a mediator. And then the mediator, who's probably an attorney, is going to come in there and say, yeah, this is harassment. They're going to figure up some excuse. They're going to charge you for their time. They're going to shut you down from making the records request. So this is what I'm talking about, pretended legislation. When you read that caption of the bill, you're like, oh, this sounds good. This is a good thing. Oh, and they stick this down on the bottom. This is on the bottom of every bill. This act takes effect upon becoming a law, the public welfare requiring it. It is not, oh, did I not share this? Oh, let me see, was I sharing my screen? No, I'm sorry. Let me go back and show you that, because this is important. I'm going to go back to that bill. This is at the bottom of every bill. right here. This act takes effect becoming law, the public welfare requiring it. I can tell you, public welfare is oppressed by this bill. There is no doubt in my mind. These things are, it's disgusting to me, this kind of legislation. And when you look at, when I started this thing, we're looking at 1,500 pieces of garbage like this run through our legislation. So what I want you to do is, you guys have been watching me go in and testify in the Tennessee General Assembly, House committees, Senate committees, subcommittees, rules committees. I get in there and testify because I'm a citizen and I'm performing my civic duty. When I do that, I'm standing up for what I believe in. I believe that I'm standing up for the people. When I get in there and testify, I'm not just allowing government to do whatever they want to do with garbage legislation like Senator Hale has proposed. This is this bill, SB 0135, is the definition of pretended legislation, and one of the reasons that we declared independence from Great Britain. And we all have dissatisfaction with government, all of us, at some level, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter who you are, we're all sick and tired of the corruption that's going on. And this is where it starts, is by the pretended legislation that is enacted in our legislative houses. There's another piece to this, is understanding, how this interacts with existing code. I'm going to share my screen again here. This was another bill, and this is the process. If we look at, let's go back to SB 0135, a stupid thing to prevent lawful FOIA requests. So right now, this was filed for introduction on January 13th in the Senate, and on the next day in the House. And then it says introduced, passed on first consideration, and they abbreviated over the House P1C. It means passed for first consideration. So if you want to go down and testify, for, God knows why you would want to testify in favor of a bill like this, but if you wanted to oppose it, here's the process. And I'm going to use this next bill. This is a bill that I testified against in both the House and the Senate. But you can see here, the first process, introduced and passed on first consideration, passed on P2C, passed on second consideration. And then it says it's assigned to the subcommittee on constitutional protections and sentencing subcommittee on February 11th of 2019. That's where you guys need to get in. So this thing is assigned to the subcommittee on constitutional protections. So let's go to the General Assembly website here, and we look at committees, and what was that committee we were looking at? Constitutional protection and sentencing in the Senate. So let's make sure I'm under committees and Senate, and I'm not gonna kill you with finding this subcommittee on here. I think it's state and local. No, but anyway, the point I'm making is you go find that committee, and they'll have a chairman. So this is the state and local government, and the chairman of that committee is Richard Briggs. So you click on Richard Briggs, and it has his contact information. So you can call them. I don't recommend calling them because they never return phone calls. They always ignore you, and you don't create a record because they can always deny that you ever made the phone call. So what I do is I email them. So you click on right here underneath their name is email legislator, and it auto populates if you're using Outlook right into your email. And then you can just say, hey, Senator Briggs, I would like to testify against SB 0135. I have a constitutional right to instruct my representatives, and I'm asserting that constitutional right, and I would like to speak on this bill. And the committees, let me stop share here. The committees each committee has their own garbage that they make up. Some of them are going to say, well, you need to email us your talking points because we want to know what you're going to say before you say it. Some of them, will give you 3 minutes to speak. Some of them will give you 4 or 5 minutes. If you say I need, 8 or 9 or 10 minutes, they may give it to you, but almost always they limit citizens to 3 minutes. Well, let me tell you, you guys have seen me do it. You can accomplish a lot in 3 minutes time to expose pretended fake legislation. So you email the chair of the committee and say, I would like to speak on this bill for or against. Sometimes, not very often, but sometimes they have legislation that you might want to speak in favor of. I haven't really found any myself. I speak against all of the pretended legislation, pretty much, that they run through there. I'm going to go back and share my screen. And this is something that is really important. So one thing you can do is you can pick on either your Senate or your House member, and you can click on their page. This is Representative Bricken. I don't know this representative personally. I don't think I've ever spoken to him. And you can go through, and so he's done just 3 bills so far regarding election laws, employees, and alcohol beverages. And then you could go through and read the caption, and then go through and, like I said, read what the actual bill is about. You can also go to legislation, and you can browse bills by subject and see, some of you out there are going to have expertise in healthcare. Some of you are going to have expertise in insurance, criminal justice, judiciary, like myself. You're going to have expertise in some area. And so maybe you want to focus on a subject, but you have a right to instruct your representatives. Their rules provide for you to go and speak. So like this gentleman that I was going to do this live stream with tonight, he's like, I want to talk about this bill. How do I do it? So that's how you do it, is you find something that interests you or that outrages you more likely, and you contact the committee chair. And how you contact that committee chair is by looking at the bill and seeing, like this one, what committee. This is one that's gone through the whole process. But you can see, like we were looking at this new proposed bill, it only says pass on first consideration. But the next step after that is passed on second consideration and then assigned to a committee. And then the committees are going to discuss it. And you can see that the date that it's on. So you go to the chair of the committee and say, hey, on February 11th, I'd like to speak for or against this bill. Another thing that I do on here is for bills I'm looking at, I'm going to log myself out of here. But if you click on it, if you've never been here and you've never set up your bills, you can go to the legislative website, click on My Bills at the top right, and you can register and put in your, create a user ID and a password. And I'll log in here real quick. I don't think you all can see my password. So these are my bills. I'm looking at this SB 0135 initially. And I'm keeping an eye on it, but I can save these bills, to this portfolio of bills that I want to keep my eyeballs on. And I come back in here and I look, every day, and I see when this thing gets assigned to subcommittee. You can also, I don't remember how I do it, but you can subscribe to the clerk's email list and they'll notify you. I encourage you people to do that and register and get emails about when they're doing legislation. Another piece that I do, I'm not going to go too much into it, but when you look at the actual bill, it has in here, it's an act to amend Tennessee Code, Tennessee Code annotated, Title 10, Chapter 7, Part 5, relative to records requests. And so they're going into Section 1 and adding the following to subdivision C. So this might get a little complicated for you, but here it is, 10.7.503A7, right here. 10.7.503. So that's title, chapter, and section, and then subsections is what that means. So where do you go? So you want to see they're adding this. This is important to understand how they're changing the legislation, because they may say, like this one is amending by adding a new subparagraph. What it might say is deleting subparagraph C and replacing it with this. So they might, I didn't have my screen share on again. I'm so sorry. I'm sitting here looking at the screen, my apology. So this one, this is going back and looking at this 135 section or Senate Bill 0135 that just appalls me. And the bill shows, the title, chapter, and part. So Title 10, Chapter 7, Part 5, and then the subsection of this. And it's saying it's amended by adding the following subdivision. It may say that it's replacing a subdivision. So it's important to understand, like, what are they doing? What are they trying to change? Why are they trying to change that? And so how you look at that is you can go to the Tennessee court.gov website, and you can click on View Tennessee Code. And so we go look, so you go down to Title 10, Chapter 7, subsection 5, and then I don't remember what it was, 501 or something. But you can click in here. I don't know which one it is, but I'm just going to give you an example here. And they're saying that they're inserting a new subparagraph C. So you can kind of, I think this is really important. And this is how I analyze bills, is I go in here and say, okay, they're taking this language and replacing it with something else. Why? If we continue to just sit back and not oversee government, they're going to continue with pretended legislation like Senator Hale has proposed. He ran this bill, and these guys are so patient with corruption and pretended legislation. They're so patient. I complained about this bill. Senator Hale proposed this bill last session. And, I raised a stink about it, emailed the Senate Judiciary Committee, wanted to go and talk about it. And I had to email this particular committee my talking points, so they knew what I was going to say. And they ended up shutting down the bill last session. And here's Senator Hale right back the next year doing the same garbage legislation. And now he's adding it to extort people and force them to pay an attorney to mediate getting a public records request. They keep, we have to continue to take a look at the General Assembly website. For goodness sake, at least take a look, whoever your representative is. So I'll go look at my representative is Johnny Garrett. So if we go look at Johnny Garrett, Can't do my, here's Johnny Garrett. I can go look and see, what my representative is doing. At least, people, keep an eye on what your representatives are doing. Or as I mentioned earlier, go look at legislation and browse by subject and find an area that you have expertise or you have interest or you have concern. Education, healthcare, insurance, whatever it is, take a look. We have got to start watching these guys. They are continuing to enact legislation that oppresses our rights, that creates new things to tax and fine us for. A very common one is longer prison sentences, which in my opinion is mostly about generating more revenue by keeping people in jail longer for our privatized prison system that's grossly incompetent and negligent taking care of prisoners in this state. There's so much garbage legislation that goes through our legislative houses, and they do it unchecked, without complaint by citizens. And you sit home and complain, doggone government, they keep doing this garbage that I can't, hold the phone up to my head, despite the fact that we already have distracted driving statutes. Now they're giving me a ticket because they saw me, with the phone up to my head. Stupid stuff that these guys are doing to tax and fine and oppress our rights. We've got to start standing up. We have got to become citizens. And being a citizen is not just you getting out there voting. The banner behind me, take Tennessee back. Let's take Tennessee back and start speaking out against this ridiculous legislation that they're putting out there. Let's start exposing the corrupt pretended legislation that our founders complained of when they declared independence from Great Britain. So that's the process. Watch the bills. Look at the General Assembly website. See what the heck these guys are trying to pass. Go to the committee chairs and say, I want to speak. I'm asserting my right to instruct you guys. Don't pass this garbage. If we don't watch, nobody is going to watch. And reading, the final report from President Trump's 1776 Advisory Commission report, this is what is essential, is that we have got to start acting like citizens, which means performing our civic duty, which means overseeing government. We have absolutely got to do this. So I hope that helps you guys. Go browse the bills. Go speak to the chairs and testify against them. Research the bill. Look at the actual language of the bill, not the stupid caption. That's very often, almost always, a false portrayal of what the bill is actually about. Don't read the caption. Read the bill and go and take a look at the existing statute and look at what are they trying to change. And when you look at what they're trying to change, you're like, oh, I see what these guys are trying to do now. And let me go in there and expose this. Don't be ashamed when you start to expose it, just as I have gone in there and shamed them. And they have, and from my testimonies, they've taken bills off notice. Sometimes they try to prevent my testimony and they use a little trickery and they still get it passed if it's really important to them. But at least, and I'm telling you, man, if a bunch of us started doing this, if a lot of us citizens started going down and saying, we ain't taking it anymore, we're taking Tennessee back. The banner behind me, take Tennessee back. That's what my campaign for governor is about, is taking Tennessee back and restoring power to the people. And it's not just, drain the swamp, make America great again. I'm showing you guys how. I'm teaching you how to be responsible citizens. I'm out there actively fighting, defending the Constitution. I'm actively out there testifying against this legislative process and this pretended legislation that they're putting out there. I can't do it alone. We got to do it together. We have all got to stand together. And when we do that, government corruption is going to shake in its boots. Cockroaches don't like the light. And when we start shining the light on them and exposing this, and you know, just as a final note, I'm going to share my screen one more time. And here's why this is so important: is if you go to a bill. Let's see if I've got something saved up here. Okay, so here's this. By the way, this is the same garbage legislation that the Judiciary Committee shot hail down with this records custodian getting injunctions against citizens who want Freedom of Information Act records available, made to them. As you can click on, this video is available.
On the agenda is Senate Bill 590, item number 2 by Speaker Pro Tem Hales. Senator Hale, you are recognized on Senate Bill 590.
Let's watch this for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Senate Bill 590 has an amendment that will make the bill. Let me spent on this, and then there's no purpose to this. The individual walks in, looks at it, and then makes another request. This happened time and time again. They have 2 notebooks full. So after the custodian petitions the court, and while the case is pending, the custodian must continue to fulfill any records request from.
So that was Hale trying to get this bill through last time, and I think largely because I spoke out against it, the Senate Judiciary shot it down. But here he is, right back the next legislative session, trying to do the same garbage again. We have to come together as a people and start standing up against this. We have to start, performing our civic duty, and that's what President Trump's advisory commission was talking about. Is we've got to start acting like citizens. If the last statement he made in here, I'm going to find this really quick. I apologize, but I think this is important. He said, "At home, in school, at the workplace, and in the people, or in the world, it is the people, and only the people, who have the power to stand up for America and defend our way of life." And I can't think of a better way to defend America than to stand up against pretended legislation in our legislative houses and shut it down before this law hits the books, kill it while it's a bill by testifying against it. So I think I beat that horse up enough. I'm running for governor for the state of Tennessee, and I use this platform as a candidate to expose the corruption that is going on out there. But my work is about restoring the form of government established in the Tennessee Constitution. That form of government is violated by our government. My work is about restoring power of the people, and I am literally doing it. President Trump, great respect for the guy. He's like, I want to return power to the people. I want to restore power back to where it belongs, but no plan for that. Respectfully, no plan for that. What I'm doing is restoring power by restoring the right of remonstrance, your right to petition by address or remonstrance. What I'm doing is sitting here educating you to get out there and testify in our legislative houses against legislation that literally makes you sick to your stomach, like this garbage that Senator Hale has proposed to protect against FOIA requests to conceal public record from the public. I'm teaching you how to literally take back power. And one thing Trump said, it is the people and only the people that will defend the American way of life. So thank you for taking this time with me. God bless. Godspeed to us all. And in God we trust. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.